Let's get more reaction to this top story. I'm joined by National Liquor Traders convener Lucky Ntimane. Lucky, thank you so much for joining us. It's really interesting, this discussion about methanol. We know that it does occur naturally, I think, in trace amounts in the body, but I would imagine that they wouldn't be telling us about it if it weren't extremely unusual what they've picked up in the bodies and the blood of these deceased teenagers. What I know about methanol is it's the simplest form of alcohol, but it's processed extremely differently to alcohol in the body, and that's why it's lethal, that it turns into formaldehyde, which in amounts between 10 and 30 mils can kill you. So it's extremely lethal. However, we are also hearing that it is often used in illegal liquor manufacturing. Could you tell us why it's used if it's so lethal, and is it common practice here in South Africa?
Thank you so much, Sally. I appreciate the opportunity. So yes, we've been following the press release or the press conference by the minister as well as the premier and the health officials in the Eastern Cape, where we noted, with serious concern, the trace of methanol in the bodies of those young ones that lost their lives. We are concerned because we know that the illicit trading of alcohol and the brewing thereof mostly occur in rural areas, and the Eastern Cape and KZN often come up tops as areas where we see a lot of deaths that could be linked to this type of tragedy, to methanol being used in byproducts or in the production of this illicit alcohol. But also I need to emphasize that the illicit trade of alcohol has now reached 10% of what the legal market is in South Africa, amounting to 20 billion rand. So the people that are doing this are well resourced, and they are running a well-oiled machinery that are able to produce this at an industrial level. Hence, we are worried that the issue that we've seen in Enyobeni might not be the last.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we don't know where the methanol in their systems came from. It could have been through the ingestion of alcohol, illegal alcohol laced with methanol, which I think still gives you the effects of alcohol, but can of course be deadly. We also know that methanol, which is a cleaning substance, it's not at all recommended. It's used in sanitizers, for example, but we know that it can be deadly if it's inhaled, ingested, i.e. swallowed in a drink perhaps, or very problematic if it gets on the skin as well. I would imagine that within the liquor trade you are discussing these latest results, particularly as you told me just before we went to air, there have been incidents where methanol used in illegal alcohol has killed people in South Africa. Tell us about those.
So we have had instances during the restriction on trade of alcohol during lockdowns, where people tried to be masters of bringing alcohol from the back of their garages or back of their homes, and this resulted in a lot of deaths. We saw reported incidents in the Free State, as well as in the Eastern Cape and KZN, and these are largely rural areas where people are preying on people's inability to purchase alcohol at a legal environment where they have to pay a bit of a premium, especially for spirits, because the methanol is largely used, in the spirit side, where people use this product to pass off, brands that are known as legit, whereas we know that they're not legit. So these are just people that are unscrupulous, and they do not even care about the health of our people. So this is a worrying trend, because it doesn't seem like it is going to end here. But now the big question is, and how do we stop this? But also, Sally, whilst I have an opportunity, I would like to acknowledge, the openness and the frankness in which the Minister of Police, Bekele, has engaged with the alcohol industry. I've had a chat with him just before I came on air, as well as the Premier of the Eastern Cape, Oscar Mabuyane. We are willing, to work with the alcohol industry to ensure that we clamp down on this and that we do not allow these type of incidents to occur in our environments, because it is very dangerous that, not these will have killed not just 13-year-olds, but even grown-ups, fully grown adults, given, the toxicity of methanol in someone's body. So this is something that we really are placing our focus on. And as alcohol industry, we're going to come together to ensure that, we are able to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
And I think it's also a huge caution for consumers. I was reading about a story, I think from Yugoslavia, where plum brandy, I think it was being illegally manufactured. Methanol was being added, I think, to give it a bit of a kick, and quite a few people actually died from consuming that. But they were using the bottles of the original plum brandy. And concerning then, because as a consumer, you might go, well, is this the real thing? Yeah, it looks like it's in a real brandy bottle. Is that the sort of thing that you're concerned about?
It is very much common in South Africa where these illicit products are being put in legit bottles to pass them off as real products. And we know, for example, if I were to use a way of example, that Smirnoff, for example, has been largely targeted because it's a white spirit. So people have been putting all sorts of things that appear white in those bottles to pass them off as legitimate products. And that has caused a lot of deaths actually in the Eastern Cape and KZN during lockdowns, where people were laying their hands on whatever they could find that resembled alcohol. But that continues to happen now because we know that those unscrupulous dealers that were thriving during lockdown have now managed to build a strong route to markets where they even have the customers that are supplying these products to. And we are calling on the public to not buy alcohol from people that they cannot pass on as legitimate, to buy alcohol in only recognized retailers and taverns in communities that they can trust, and not just buy anything that appears cheap because it is deadly, like we've seen in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, and of course we don't know if it was in the alcohol that the kids were given. And my understanding, and you might have heard more than me on this one, is that the patrons at eNCA Tavern that night were being given free drinks. Do you have that information?
We have that information that the patrons at eNCA were given free drinks and they were also given free food. So obviously at this stage it will be premature for us to really tell whether this substance was placed in the alcohol beverage or it was in the food. But we remain concerned that there is someone out there who has access to methanol and they're willing to unleash the deadly effects of this on our people, be it underage or even the adults who could have been the victims in this instance.
Lucky, talk to me about what's happening at these taverns. You know, things can be slack. Kids get in with fake IDs, they hand a bribe. Are you clamping down? Is everyone on board, every person who has an alcohol outlet? How have you managed to impress upon them that this is crucially important?
The issue of eNCA has been very difficult for all of us, for all liquor traders across the country. And most associations that we're talking to, as well as liquor traders, have opted to use ID verification as a means for accepting people into their premises. And this is not only happening in formal outlets, which are to be found, you know, in mid to upper class areas, but also in the township, where when you access tavern, now you have to produce an ID if there is a reasonable apprehension that you might be underage. And we want to, you know, commend the liquor traders that have taken a stance, you know, to say they will not serve alcohol to those that are minors. They are not going to compromise, you know, the well-being of their communities ahead of the profits. And we feel that that is the way to go. That's how we need to operate ourselves as liquor traders, by putting our people first before the profits.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for that update. We really do appreciate your time. That, of course, is Lucky Ntamani. He's from the National Liquor Traders Association, and very concerned about the reality that these children's blood had methanol in it. We still don't know exactly how it got into their system, but there is a strong chance that it could have been from illegal alcohol. Of course, we'll wait to see further results from the tests that continue.